Hi there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. My name's Anna Pirelli. The comments that you see here are my views, beliefs, opinions, and sometimes they are not even my fully formed views, beliefs, and opinions. However, they are my understandings. Please do retain an open mind and reflect on any of the content and your comfort levels. If your views differ, please feel free to leave a comment. Also remember, it is possible to disagree in respectful ways. My way is not necessarily your way and vice versa. You might also find that some of the content on this playlist in regard to spiritual or universal laws, it resonates with you, meaning it feels right to you, while other laws may not feel right or they may not feel comfortable. If this is the case, the information is either not right for you or it is not right for you right now, and it might never be right for you at any given time. It really doesn't matter. As an earthy and practical person, I can put my hand up with all honesty and say that I have at different times had the same feelings about some of the content in here. And with some of them, I still have a level of skepticism within my viewpoints, but I choose to retain an open mind about the things that I don't fully understand for a few reasons. Firstly, because I believe it would be supreme arrogance to think that we all know all of the answers while we have a body. And because what is right for one of us is not necessarily right or suitable for all of us, and I choose to respect the differences. Please do leave your opinions, beliefs. Feel free to argue the points in a respectful way with any of the content on the slides and even my interpretations. And if you feel that you can add clarity around some of the content, we would all love to see it. Thank you. For now, though, let's explore the laws.
All creation is governed by law. The principles that operate in the outer universe, discoverable by scientists, are called natural laws. But there are subtler laws that rule the hidden spiritual planes and the inner realm of consciousness. Contained within these laws, or conditions, is the true nature of matter. Knowledge of these laws has an effect upon the mental urges. Mind is the builder. Stay in full mindfulness of the application of universal law as related to self and to others, and know that in love all life is given, in love all things move. In giving one attains, in giving one acquires. In giving, love becomes the fulfillment of desire, guided and directed in the ways that bring the more perfect knowledge of self as related to the universal, all-powerful, all-guiding, all divine influence in life. Love is life. When we go back, merge with the God source, in some infinitesimal but profound way, we expand the mind of God. Our higher self always points the best and most perfect way, and it is ours to listen and choose or reject what we hear. It does not blame, but patiently tries again to show the perfect way, the loving way. All of creation pushes forth. We are ever becoming. Identity ever remains. Universal Law number 80. The law of responsibility. It was God's idea to separate, to give our soul existence. It was our idea to go away from God into materiality with the original purpose of profound and speedy soul growth. There are some souls who have experienced, to some degree, soul loss. God is responsible for us through love, and we are responsible to become or reclaim this divine love. Once we establish the limits and boundaries of our responsibility, we can take full charge of that which is our duty and let go of that which is not. We find more enjoyment supporting others as we create more harmonious cooperative relationships by understanding that which falls within our realm of responsibility. Under this law, we understand a person's need to over-cooperate to such an extent that one becomes codependent, the condition which is obsessive focus on other people's lives. This law reminds us to respect our internal values and find our own point of balance.
So in some ways, if you've watched the previous universal law videos that I've put up, particularly the ones on the law of rebound, I think it is, and the law of repulse, and even the law of rebirth and those kind of things, I do understand, and I can put into perspective what they're saying here, that that basically there are laws around responsibility to the point of separation and choice, and I'll go into that in a bit of detail. What I find hard to swallow with the way this law is phrased is it talks about the idea of separation as part of our soul existence. And to me, this is a little incongruous because it infers that it would mean that the decision to be separated would be made before our soul actually was created. So that bit doesn't make sense. But in regard to the other bit of separation, I do understand that we are born into the world behind what is called a veil. And the veil is this business of not remembering where we've come from, and where we feel this idea that we're separate somehow from the divine, from the creator. We don't recall what our soul purpose is or who we are. So to an extent, we're born feeling lost and without a memory, or I've put down here in my notes a false memory, but I don't know that it's a false memory. It's just that we're born and we have to remember who we are, what we are, and that we're one with the creator, all that I am, by whatever name you want to call that creator, and that the creator lives within all of us, regardless of our religious faith or persuasion. Of course, most people that attend a church, depending on their religious faith and their teachings, they do teach that we are all interconnected and connected to Creator. They do all refer to the brother and sisterhood of man. But the difference with the faiths, from what I understand, is that they actually put parameters and boundaries about who is family and who isn't, which is a little disappointing. Anyway, this is my understandings, and I invite discussion about this. My understanding is that before each of us are born into our current life, we have a conversation. It's a team decision about what might or might not be included in the current lifetime, what lessons or experiences we need to promote the best growth, this whole striving for personal excellence. But it's also not simply about what is the greatest good for our own soul, because we are all interconnected. And my understanding is that we are each, upon creation of that divine spark or element of ourselves, we're connected to what is called a soul pack or a soul family. So within the context of our current physical life, before we were born, it was discussed what would be in the best interest for the family or the pack growth, what's in the best interest for us. And there becomes, if you like, this is a very simplified explanation. There's conversations about who will play what role as part of helping us to learn the lessons for the greater good of the pack, the person, the collective, and that we come into this earth, as I say, without conscious recollection. Now, interesting point here, right, as that many of these challenges that we face, and this includes, let's say, betrayals or really tense family relationships, where the impacts of those experiences go across the life path, that these are actually people who we are soul connected to. They are part of helping us to reach the soul pack goals and objectives, if you like. So I would phrase this that some of the harshest and cruelest earthly lessons that we have are actually those ones that we've agreed to on a soul level, and that those people, I think this actually helps in the process of forgiveness, actually. Those people that have hurt us the most or the deepest in this lifetime, that they actually are doing the role that they came here on earth to do. It seems a bit unfathomable, but when we reflect on it deeper, certainly, and always I'm talking about my perspective, it's made it easier for me to forgive those people. And it doesn't mean that when we talk about forgiveness, it doesn't mean turning around and saying, well, that was great, good on you, well done, what you did was just brilliant, thank you very much. Because from an earthly perspective, they may still be unaware of what their path in life is. And basically it would be just identifying it's not healthy. It doesn't make what they do okay. It just means that we refuse to live our life consumed by anger and bitterness towards them for whatever it is that they've done to us. And from my perspective, what I did was I've adopted an attitude of, well done, job well played, thanks for the lessons, and now let's not meet again until either you've grown and evolved enough and remembered your own soul purpose, or that they have an earthly willingness to let go of any toxicity and to just do the basic human decencies, that respect for person, even if it's not got a spiritual basis to the relationship on a conscious level. So anyway, my understanding is that until we've learned that lesson, yes, we will keep doing reruns. So going back to separation, that's where we are born behind the veil. We don't remember, and it's up to us to remember. And then it's up to us to make a choice as to how we're going to live our life. So how are we going to talk about soul loss? Is it a loss? How do we lose our soul? I do actually have some understanding of this, but I call it a different name. I don't call it soul loss because I don't believe it's possible to lose our soul. This is just my perspective once again. I would be inclined to call it soul fragmentation. And I do understand that with the Aboriginal folk in Australia, I don't know about overseas, they call it a broken spirit, okay? So to put this into perspective, whether you can relate to the concept of soul fragmentation or soul loss, I would imagine people can relate to it. It's when you feel that you give and give and give to people and you take on more responsibility than you can actually carry, and everything goes pear and everybody goes in their different directions, and you might have heard yourself turn around and say things like, I lost a bit of myself then, and I've never been able to retrieve it from when a relationship is broken down, or if a loved one has passed over and the person is struggling with grief, they might turn around and say, I've never recovered, a piece of me died that day. They lose themselves. But what they're doing is they're not actually losing themselves, they're losing some energy. And I believe this is part of the aura. And this is what makes them feel less than whole or incomplete. Okay. Now, the reason I understand this is because many years ago, I found an activity where you do what is called a soul retrieval. And that is that you pull back all the fragments of yourself that you have become scattered and dispersed across lifetimes and relationships, and you just regroup and you solidify your aura again to help yourself feel whole and complete again. Now, obviously, when I learned this technique and strategy, this was something that I learned many, many years ago. I think we must be looking at close to 20 years ago now when I first heard of it, and I practiced it. And it involved a ritual. Well, 20 years down the track, I think rituals are good for reinforcing what it is that we're trying to do, our purpose and our objective and our intention and that kind of stuff. So at this point in my life, I would say if you feel that you've lost part of yourself, and this might be through broken relationships or whatever, you could just do an invocation, if you like, to the Creator and the highest powers to regroup all the fragments of your soul. And I would put in under grace and in the divine way, because, just to, if you've read the law of grace and that kind of stuff, basically to ensure that you're complying, says me, the old legal terms come out, with karmic law requirements and that kind of stuff. So under grace and in the divine way. And then once you go through this activity, you do start to feel whole again. But let's take a quick look at what they mean by what they're saying when we take on board responsibilities that aren't ours. And this is, of course, yes, very unhealthy physically, psychologically, and everything else. And this is why we need to have healthy boundaries, because if we do choose to take on board another person's responsibilities, and sometimes that happens, sometimes it serves a purpose, such as if they're unwell and they're not able to meet their responsibilities, they might need a bit of help, At those times, that would be within a healthy relationship or friendship. And that there would be a reciprocal, if you became unwell, they'd help you out as well, because that's what friends do for each other. But at the end of the day, I also do believe that the universe does provide a balance at some point in time, because even if, let's say, you were there for a friend, and I've done stuff like this myself, where I've gone out on a limb for people that are friends, and then for some reason there's been a parting of ways. And it's not always about having a friendship fight or whatever. It could be about relocation. A very simple example, is every time one of my friends had to move house, I was over there helping them pack, clean, and all of that kind of stuff. Every single time I had to move house, my friends were living in a different town and I had to do it on my own, or, find new people. But as time goes by, yes, the universe does create a balance. And of course, the other aspect of this is that, we do find pleasure as human beings from supporting other people. Even I would say probably, well, actually, I'll just say, look, I've never met anybody that doesn't like to be supportive of those people that they care about personally, whether that's their extended family or friends. Obviously, you get other people who are very generous and will support many people. And it is very pleasurable to provide support and help to people, especially when it's valued and appreciated. And when we're helping, there's also cooperation. So, we are talking about co-creation when we're talking about cooperation as well. Now, just to put into perspective an example of responsibility, perhaps, what's healthy and what's not, is that personal responsibility is where we take care of our own base and emotional needs for growth and so forth. We're looking after ourselves. We're meeting all of our individual independent responsibilities. Now, most parents, I'm just actually trying to put this into perspective. Okay, what I've learned over the years is also that to be able to function as a decent human being, I have to fill my cup first. And when my cup is full, or at least 3/4 full, because when you're a parent and you've got children that are dependent on you and lots of family members and that kind of stuff, it can be quite difficult to keep the cup full, to the brim. But we can still function when the cup is, say, 3/4 full and give out a bit, but we've got to keep something back for ourselves to remain well and healthy. So we kind of know that these days, but the more full our cup, the more we've got to give over to others, and it is easier for us to replenish our own cup so we can help others. Then on the other hand, so when we talk about helping others, it can happen in multiple ways. Now, of course, as people may be aware, I qualified social worker and I did a lot of advocacy to support people of what we call vulnerable demographics. It could be homeless people, it could be people with disability and all the rest of it. And so what the advocates are actually doing is providing support to people in the absence of other supports in the community, or the failure of government departments, or where society as a whole is avoiding their responsibility to vulnerable people. And without getting too political here, what is happening here is a lot of the time there is this judgment that if somebody's not able to work or whatever, there must be something wrong with them. Well, sometimes there is, but it's not their fault that something is wrong with them. This is quite often the case. And so you might have people with disability or some form of impairment that prohibits them from a full function in society, or from commanding the same wages as an able-bodied person or whatever, and they need to be helped. And I think the question is, should charities be shouldering all the burden here? I'm not sure that having charities do that on behalf of the government isn't actually exonerating governments from their responsibilities to caring for citizens, especially if they pay taxes and it's a democratic society. But I don't want to get too political here, but we're talking about empowerment and cooperation and co-creation for harmonious environments. And we could put this into perspective as well with, if governments and societies are avoiding their responsibilities and passing all the responsibilities for care onto charities who've got limited funding pools and all the rest of it, that might impact negatively on the type of workers that they're able to retain in their organisations or recruit. So theoretically, you might then have people, in fact, actually, I'll just be totally blunt because I've seen it and I'm aware of it. You have some very, very kind but somewhat misguided people working at high levels in these organisations, and their intention is to be helpful, but sometimes it actually undermines the person that they're trying to be supportive of, and it fosters this dependency on them. So I'll use a kind example of this. I'll say, for example, let's say there's a person with limited mobility. Actually, no, I'm going to use an example of a guy that I actually worked with who was blind, and he had a seeing eye dog. Now, he was perfectly able to work in the right environment. He actually worked for a government agency. We were both working together, and he was doing data input on a computer. And I can hear you all saying, because that was my thoughts as well, how does a blind person do data entry? They had specialist software for him, and so it was audio. He was doing everything off audio, and his dog was sitting under the desk with him. Now, the thing is, obviously, he wanted to be able to work. He could physically walk. He used to catch the bus with his dog in and out to work and all the rest of it. Now, what might happen with a charity is that people might minimise what a blind person is capable of doing. Obviously, there's barriers. Not every employer is going to have this specific software, you know. So instead of empowering them to be able to achieve their personal goals and generate an income, they might just put them on food vouchers, is where I'm going. So that fosters dependency. You know, in the instance of the blind person who could work if conditions were right, because there's a failure to address the conditions, these people become reliant on welfare and charity, which actually just compounds any feelings of inadequacy and makes them dependent on other people for their own base survival. So that's, I guess, where we're talking about being a balance, or balancing how much we give and how much we don't. But the other thing too, because I've got that mental health training and the advocacy background, I just want to point out that when we're working with people, we always talk to the person and identify what they feel capable of, and we work with them to achieve their goals, not what we think we could, because this is the other problem actually, as we're talking about not necessarily charities, it could be non-government organisations, is where somebody like me has just related the story about the blind guy that could go to work under these circumstances. You can get people that don't hold qualifications or don't have the experience or knowledge that might be put in a senior position that then turns around and goes, well, they can do it, so, you know, the next blind person that comes along, they should be able to do it too. And then they push that person so far outside of their comfort zone that the person ends up not only blind, but dealing with stress, anxiety and worry because they're being pushed to grow and develop too fast. So these are the things that I'm talking about. There's got to be that balance. Now, I just wanted to mention too, before I close out for today, that when it comes to the fostering of dependency, my understanding is that it actually creates negative karma for ourselves, that our role in life is to empower people to make their own choices and to pursue their own path. But anyway, I'm going to leave all of that with you to have a think about. You can chew on that. You can get back to me. You can let me know what your thoughts are and what your feelings are if I can talk, in regard to this content today. Have a wonderful day, my friends. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye for now.